Hi parents, and welcome back to our session on parental approval. We've been talking about the single most important thing that every child needs and craves and can only get from his parents, which is parental approval. You see, if we don't feel that approval from our parents, we'll always be working for it. And if you're working for approval instead of from approval, you'll never get there because you can always do more, you can always do better, and it's just a treadmill that you can end up on. So we referenced the verse when Jesus was baptized, when the Father spoke and said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." And Jesus had not done anything up to that point. He hadn't done a miracle, he hadn't preached a sermon, nothing. And the Father said, "I'm well pleased with him." So Jesus was working from approval. He had the Father's approval before he did his work, before he completed the mission he was put on earth to do. And so that's the parenting model we want to follow. We want to follow the model of our perfect parent, our perfect Father in heaven, if we want to raise world changers, if we want to raise our children to be all that they can be, to be all that God's called them to be, and to fulfill their kingdom purpose on earth. And so we've talked about how we can love our children and still send messages of disapproval. And it's because we tend to default to our human nature. And when something goes wrong or misbehavior happens, we react in the flesh. And so today we're going to talk about so we talked about, making sure our words are encouraging and edifying, but then we ended the last session with, well, what do you do when your child falls short? And so today I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about how do you send messages of approval in the middle of a negative situation, whether it's an accident or behavior that you disapprove of. And so today, we're going to look at, sorry, let me just check my notes here. Glasses help. So we're going to talk about, instead of reacting and judging and reacting, how to observe and respond. So when something happens, we automatically judge it as good or bad. And that's the first mistake, because right then and there, we're eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and judging what's happened as good or bad, rather than remaining objective. So if we just observe and we say, oh, this is what's happening, then we have more composure and we can respond. But when we judge and we judge it as bad or negative, we immediately go into reactive mode and we want to place blame. Because when you judge something as bad, then the person that caused it is then guilty. And that's all tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that's all what happened when Adam and Eve ate from that tree. They began to judge each other. It was her fault. It was the snake's fault. Oh, we're naked, we should hide. All these judgments about themselves, about each other, and even about God. They hid from God, and God did not hide from them. He came looking for them. So they were judging themselves from this knowledge of good and evil, and they felt guilty. And so that's what happens when we judge a situation. Someone's guilty. And if the child's caused the problem or is the problem at that point, then we judge them. So we want to avoid judging whether something is good or bad. And most of the time, our kids' behavior is not morally wrong. It's not anything that they should be condemned for. It's simply things like impulsiveness, not having good judgment, not being able to control their impulses or desires, and accidents and things like that. So I think if we can begin to just stop and observe, it'll help us a lot. And then we can respond instead of reacting and see what needs to happen next. So I want to take the example today, something very simple, as a child dropping a glass of juice in the kitchen and spilling juice and breaking the glass all over the floor. Of course, that's going to be unexpected, and my normal reaction. Maybe you're a lot more calm and collected than me, and some people are. I mean, personalities play a lot in this, so you have to be able to control your normal reactions, and react and go, oh my goodness, but normally we'll react and we'll go into, what happened? Why'd you do that? You're so clumsy. I mean, it could be anything from oh my gosh, now I'm going to be late for work. And what happens is then the child feels guilty. He feels like he's the problem. And, he feels shame. Oh, now I've caused this problem for mom. It's my fault. So if we stop though and we observe and we go, oh, there's a broken glass and juice on the floor. What needs to happen next? Then we can remain calm. Well, first of all, my child's probably upset because he just dropped his juice, spilled it, and broke a glass. And he knows, any child of any age knows that that's not good. And so you're gonna first check on him. Are you okay? Physically and emotionally. Did you hurt yourself? Are you okay? And then assure him, it's okay. We'll clean it up. Next, then, you're just going to tell him what you need, what needs to happen. Get me a broom, get me a bucket, get me a mop, get me towels, whatever you need. Okay, so you're telling him showing him what needs to happen next. And then you clean it up together. So what happens when you can keep yourself calm and collected and you can observe and respond, and then the result is then you're showing him that you approve of him regardless of anything that happens that he does, any problem he causes, are you okay? Right away, your first concern is for him, not against him. Oh my gosh, this is your fault. How could you do this? How could you be so clumsy? Now I'm going to be late for work. Those are all sending messages of rejection, not approval. And so by saying, are you okay? Okay, well, we'll clean it up together. And then you're teaching him how to stay calm in a crisis. Oh my gosh, what a life skill to have. So you're letting him know you still approve of him by staying calm, checking on him, that, you're modeling for him, which is how our kids learn. Why do we grow up and behave just like our parents when we said we wouldn't? Because that's really how we learn, is we're gonna model after our parents. And so if you model calm in a crisis, you're teaching your child an invaluable life skill that'll serve him for life just by being calm. Isn't that amazing? And then you're showing them how to clean up a mess. Oh my goodness, just teaching them. Practical skills, relational skills, crisis skills, self-esteem. You're doing all this just by observing and responding instead of judging and reacting. So it's awesome how much just day-to-day little things like spilled milk can be huge, huge teaching moments for our kids. When we judge and react, what's a problem, and that it's his fault that you're upset. And so, I want to encourage you to try to keep your cool, even in a situation that you don't expect. When accidents happen, the dog runs, the child lets go of the leash, and the dog's running the neighborhood, and you got to go find him. All these things that happen every day. They forget their lunch. They knock over something. They drop their whatever. All the things that happen when you have kids is just to remain calm, observe the problem, evaluate the problem, and then work the solution. And that's one thing we didn't even talk about, is problem-solving skills. Oh, there's a problem. We have a spilt milk or juice and glass on the floor. How do we solve this? So you're teaching your child to remain calm in a crisis and evaluate the problem and solve problems. These are such tremendous life skills that so many adults do not have. And so I know what you're thinking. This is awesome, when it's an accident, but what do you do? And how do you handle it when your child blatantly disobeys or does something you've told him not to do? That's a whole different story, isn't it? So I want to talk about that in the next video. But I hope today's video has been helpful for you to give you a practical way to send messages of approval even in the midst of a crisis. And in the next video, we'll talk about how to send messages of approval even in the midst of blatant disobedience. I'll see you there.